Joining us on this episode is Molly Grunewald. Molly is a luxury couples and boudoir photographer based in Detroit, Michigan. She hosts a photographer education series, The Boudoir Bible, coaching business owners how to grow, thrive, and change the industry narrative that boudoir is so much more than just naked photography. I'm Kyle Wilson, and this is The Photographer's Problem.
Do you give yourself pretty good break time when you're in your like off-season work?
Yes, but I
Oh,
don't.
well, retract. Do you have really like heavy off? Because you're not primarily weddings, right? You're
Correct.
primarily portraits.
Yeah. So I specialize in weddings and boudoir, but then I also do education. So I really don't have an off season anymore. But I am really good at like time management, which I feel like a lot of photographers aren't good at. But I'm just really good at like time management and like just balancing. Like I work really hard, but I play really hard just as much. So it's like, okay, if I have to wake up at 5 a.m. to be done by noon to go hang out by the pool from 12 to 2, like I will do that. So I'm good at taking breaks, but I'm also like, know when I need to get back into it.
Have you always been really good at time management, or has this job and like the business or the success of your work created you kind of like painted you in a corner to go, you know what? Maybe I need to be better at this thing that I'm not before.
Yeah, a little bit of both. So like when I first started photography, I definitely leaned more towards like I remember someone was like, "Oh, what do you like not like the most?" And it was like the business side, the numbers, the like all of that stuff, like the entrepreneurial side. Like I was like, "I'm a creative." And then something switched. Like as soon as I started educating people, I was like, "Oh, I'm actually like leaning more towards being an entrepreneur than necessarily like a photographer. Like majority of the time, I don't consider myself like a photographer. I consider myself an entrepreneur. And I feel like because of that, that's helped me like hone into that side of me and like those aspects of just being like, okay, I don't want to just have a photography business. I want it to be like a thriving, successful photography business that like has a team and I'm doing a bunch of different things and it's all like coexisting really well and not like burning me out.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think I've only in the last 4 or 5 years started to focus on
Yeah.
routines and habits, and I read half of Atomic Habits right at the right time, and
Yeah.
I was already bullet journaling at that point, and I was like, this is going to be my everything.
Yeah.
And I look back at my business, and I say this pretty like humbly. If it wasn't for the good photos I took, man, my business has kind of been a mess, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because I'm ADHD and I didn't know how to manage it, and I tried to like build all these automations and Tave and routines and canned emails and so on. But like getting a grip on that, especially when you've
Yeah.
got what sounds like a lot of irons in the fire. How many people do you have working for you?
It's 5 of us, including me.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But I was the same way as you. Like I looking back, like it's laughable because I'm like,
It's really,
oh
yeah.
shit, like you should not be where you're at, which is also why I love like educating because it's like, okay, I made like a crap ton of mistakes and like have learned from those and I want people to not make those mistakes. But like, yeah, I mean, nothing was streamlined. I mean, my first contracts were like paper contracts that like people filled out. Like I delivered galleries
Oh
on
yeah, I had the
CDs.
filing cabinet of
Yeah.
contracts.
Yeah, like everything was separate. Nothing was like automated at all. I didn't really start automations until like probably 3 years ago. Like so similar to you, like I've been a photographer in or a photography business for like 11 years, like over 10. And yeah, probably half of that was like kind of a shit show. And I was just kind of like, oh, well, I guess I have the eye, so I'm just kind of making it. But like, and then something hit that I was like, I don't want to be a starving artist. Like, I want to make this like actually work. And then started just getting really into like more entrepreneurial books, like investing in education, learning from other people, not even necessarily photographers, and just being like, oh, like you can't just like wear all of these hats. Like photographers talk about wearing all these hats, and it's like, you're not supposed to. Like, you're not supposed to, that's not how a business is run.
If you're good at it, do it. If you're bad, outsource it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that like I could definitely outsource, but I'm good at it. So it's like, this is working. But there were so many things that I wasn't good at, or I just like wasn't doing because I didn't have the capacity to.
Yeah, I wonder, did you once you kind of got your quote unquote got your shit together, did you start to meet with people that were photographers that you were educating or maybe wanted to educate, and it's like really clear to you now? I feel like that happened to me, where as soon as I kind of figured out my world, I was able to go, you're bad at this. You're bad at this. I could help you. Come, let me show you.
Yes.
Let me teach you.
Yes. It's like, I will hold your hand through it all. I just want you to not make the mistakes I did. And like, I genuinely believe that. I don't think, like, I wouldn't be an educator if I didn't actually want to help people, you know, like, and it's just like, I can spot it out. I feel it's probably like psychologists, like they analyze people and really, you know what I mean? And it's like, yep, I want to do that. Like, I want to fix you.
Yeah, I really love setting people's automations or digitizing, or I do my parents' budget. I'm helping my friend manage her budget.
Yeah.
And like, just teaching a friend how to use their iPhone better, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love setting it up for people, but it does kind of break my heart when I know that they're not going to continue the maintenance of it. They're just going to kind of let it fall apart. Do you run into too much of that, like on your own? Because you're obviously prideful about being able to educate and you're doing a good job at it. Do you have the dark side of it where you go, man, I've showed this person everything, but then they didn't really do it. That sucks.
Yes and no, because I think it's just, there is a fine line of like, you were built for this or you're not. Like, I think there's this thing, especially in the photography industry, where it's like, you have to do weddings and you have to be full-time. Otherwise, like, you don't matter. And it's like, well, as an educator, it can be easy. Like, I can easily be like, okay, this is how I'm going to set you up for success. I'm going to like do everything that, you know, I do, so you can have like an amazing business like I do. And then realize like, well, actually they're better as like the number 2 person. Like, they're not the leader. They don't need to be the entrepreneur. Their full-time should be part-time. Like, everyone's life looks different. So sometimes it's hard to like remember that when I am that like entrepreneur, I am like that leadership role in my career, and that's not made for everyone. So kind of like realizing that and being like, okay, let me ask these questions to figure out like, is that what you want? But even in 2 years, like, that could change, you know?
Yeah, I was to say, are you really candid with people and say, hey, maybe you should be an associate or be a number 2 for a while, or is this the right path because you've been struggling for a while? Like, will you just kind of do the education space that they hire you and want you for? I think one is educational, one coaching, so it's kind of different. But
yeah. I mean, I guess I haven't really gotten to that point as like in a specific one-on-one where I was like, hey, you shouldn't do this. But like certain people in my, even like people on my team, like we've had full discussions of them being like, yeah, I love being number 2. Like, and you're really good at being number 2. Like, there's so much, like, I feel like it's just this fantasy of like us wanting to be like number 1, number 1's the best. And it's like, well, it's not really, because we couldn't be number 1 without the number 2. And like, you know what I mean? Like, the second shooter has a really important role and things like that. So I don't know if I've ever actually had to be like, hey, you need to take a step back.
we gotta have a real
talk. but I just think it's something that like should be talked about more too, though, you know, because I mean, I just remember like starting and being like, oh, you have to do weddings. Luckily that worked for me. I liked that, you know, or like, you have to be full time. I've had that discussion. I've had mentees where they like were like, I'm going to quit my job. They were in medicine, going to quit that, go full time. And then all of a sudden, like, there was like this moment where she was like, but I really love medicine. And I was like, you can, like, you don't have to just like drop that and never go back to it. Like, you could just be a part-time photographer. Like, that's totally okay. Like, you don't have to fully, it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it can be like, I've been a client-focused photographer for 10 years, and now I'm trying to figure out what that doesn't look like. What's it look like? And it was so funny that, and I fell into the you have to mentality a little bit. Yeah. And it wasn't until a really successful painter friend of mine who sells like $10,000 pieces, she goes, well, why don't you just shoot whatever you want and then sell that? And I went, oh, I didn't even really know I was allowed to do that. Yeah. I thought it has to be someone finds me, I shoot what they want, they pay me, and then I do the next thing. And it blew my mind that could be accessible to me. And it felt like, well, duh, but somebody had to tell me.
Yeah, it's like that same as like the you have to, or it's like the I should. Like, should I do this? And it's like, should what? Like, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah. I'm trying to replace should with could as best I can. I know that's like a popular thing, but I've caught it just even in my own like daily writings. I'm like, man, I throw should a lot in my sentences. I'm really giving myself a lot of extra responsibility here.
Yeah.
That all being said, I've got a few questions we can kind of roll through as
Yeah.
time goes on here. But in general, like you've kind of already mentioned a little bit, like you made some decisions along the way that weren't the best. But throughout things, what has been your worst business decision that you've made? Like, what's the thing that you went, oh man, I'm not going to do that again. That really taught me a lot.
Yeah. I feel like recently I've kind of discovered, because I came out with a course for boudoir photographers. And as I started like writing that course and writing the content and like releasing it and everything, I realized that like, so I started with photography with boudoir, and with anything, like you're a photographer, you do everything. Like you say yes to everything at the very beginning. Like I did so many things beyond just boudoir, but I really did end up letting it like take a back seat in my business for a few years, and never really truly gave it the attention that it deserved until I was like, oh, like I did it sprinkled here and there, but I never really gave it like its own brand. And because of that, there were so many years of like boudoir that I missed out on. And like, not even just as a boudoir photographer, but like as an educator. And that like hosting like my education series on it, like I realized like, wow, I actually lost like 5 years, like 5 amazing years that I could have like been growing this already, And I feel like it's just because I didn't give it as much time of the day as like weddings, because weddings is where it was at, And I mean, I am glad that I poured my heart and soul into weddings, but once I started pouring my heart and soul like back into boudoir, like it really paid off.
Yeah. What makes a good boudoir photographer? You're one of the better ones that I know and run across. So I think it's like
Thank you.
you have the authority in the space to kind of answer that. And I think the boudoir gets. I personally have never really enjoyed the word boudoir because I think it has a
I know,
bunch of
same.
stereotypes that come along
Yeah.
with it. And I've always photographed kind of sensual portrait work, but it's never been client work. So I've never associated the word with my doing. And so I have really very little or no experience in the lane. So
Yeah.
what for somebody that is already a wedding photographer listening to this, or is a boudoir photographer, what makes a good boudoir photographer or a
I
good
feel
boudoir
like,
business, either or?
yeah. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of things that go into it, but I feel like the biggest thing is like your mindset. And I talk about it a lot. Like boudoir is so much more than just naked photos, and it, all the stereotypes that you talked about, like it's not that. And so it's about like educating your clients, not necessarily being like an educator in the space as a photographer, but like educating your clients and actually shooting from that mindset of like, this is about empowering women and it's about shooting for the client, not you. I feel like we can get really wrapped up on like creating this awesome online portfolio like through Instagram, and like of course you're an artist, like that's okay still, but like shoot for your client and like show them how beautiful they are. And I feel like you can kind of get lost in that, and that mindset of just being like, I want to help people. Like that's what drives my business, and that's what's brought in business because of that.
Because of all the stereotypes surrounding the word boudoir, but obviously that's the most like arm's length reach word that a non-photographer might know. Have you ever
Yeah.
toyed with or played with changing the verbiage that you use, or trying a different phrasing or context surrounding it, or just
Yeah.
leaning further into what you're doing now?
I haven't. I've seen photographers do that. But boudoir is boudoir. Like it's been known since like the 20s. Like, unfortunately, like I almost don't even think you should change the name. I think it's cute. Like you can call them like self-love, like shoots, things like that. But people don't really know what that is because you just
It's hard
made
to
it
search
up.
for.
And also, yeah, like SEO, like self-love photo shoot, like that's not what people are Googling. So you're almost doing yourself, like in your business, a disservice by not calling it what it is. But I think that you can just like educate people and like explain what it means to you, or maybe what boudoir isn't. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a better way to approach it than. And I don't mean to like shit on anyone that's calling it like a self-love session. I literally think that's adorable. But why don't you just say like, maybe you've heard of boudoir, maybe it kind of gives you the ick. Like, my boudoir is a self-love session. Like, that sounds like it makes more sense to me, rather than just being like, what is this? You know, like an empowerment shoot. What's that? You know, because like I can empower you just standing here. Like boudoir like really does specify what exactly it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on the money with like client education. In the same way with weddings, most of our clients probably this is their first rodeo doing
Yes.
a wedding, and we're 600 deep into it. So why wouldn't I educate them on every single piece of the day
Yeah.
that they have no idea, and more than likely their planner doesn't know either because they don't know how we work. And so
Yeah.
with a boudoir shoot, more than likely it's so different than a family portrait because we've all been in a family portrait at some point in our
Right.
lives. But boudoir feels like a wedding where if I'm a client, I've probably never done this before unless I've
Yeah.
done it with you on a yearly basis or something. So I think education surrounding that's really killer.
Yeah, and just like set up the expectations. They want to know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah. I feel like I'm assuming your best business decision has been leaning into the boudoir work, but is there something else that's been in there that you've found along the way that you're like that was a really turning point for my work?
I mean, yeah, that definitely, but also just like, and this is stupid, like, and it's going to be one of those, not stupid, but it's going to be one of those things like, of course she's saying that because she's an educator, but like, truly, like, invest back into your business. Like, I'm a firm believer that, like, if you invest in yourself, your clients are going to invest back into you. And like, the most growth that I've ever seen in my business has been like when I invested in, like, back into it, whether that was like, getting better gear, like upgrading or like investing in my web designer and her setting up my SEO, like getting a business coach, things. It doesn't always have to be education that you're investing in, but like you have no idea the power behind like investing and outsourcing until you do it. Like we talked about earlier, like when you outsource, like making more room to do the things that you love by, you know, getting someone else to do the things that you don't love. Like when I finally made those moves, it was like such a like aha moment. And I feel like that was definitely like the best thing that I ever could have
Yeah,
done.
I think targeted self-investment. I like every business gets the like spend money to make money routine,
Yeah.
but targeted investment, like you said, I went to maybe 2 workshops that were really specific. I only went because I knew there were people there I wanted to learn from and or network and meet with. And then after that, I went, okay, I'm now in like a cost fallacy here, or whatever the terminology is, where if I go to more workshops, I'm not really getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
So I've done that part now. All right, now it's the branding, or it's the outsourcing, or it's the automations,
Right.
or whatever that might be. And it's always been, it feels like you're like advancing your business by like a
Yes.
year's worth.
And like you said, like about going to multiple workshops, like I feel like I know a lot of people that just do like multiple content days after content days after content days. And it's like, well, eventually like that was awesome for your portfolio, but like pick the next thing to invest in, you know, like, cause there's so much stuff and some of them are like crazy, scary investments, or like maybe your business isn't ready for like a website upgrade. Like, but eventually like the more investments you make, like the further along you're going to grow your business.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a quality over quantity kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I really wanted a destination wedding. So, okay, I'm going to go get a dress and photograph 2 people in Iceland a couple of times. And boom, one trip paid out of pocket with wedding dresses borrowed and loaned over. Well, now I just became a destination photographer who started booking European weddings. So,
exactly.
But I didn't do that 6 times. I did it once,
right.
and I made sure to really use the images and lean into that. And so similarly with like hiring somebody like you to say, hey, all right, let me bring you on in one of your packages and let me advance my work here, rather than meeting with Molly and this guy and that girl and this guy, you know, doing 10 of these people. It won't be as impactful, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, there's options. Like it's not like a one-stop shop either, you know, but I don't believe in like reaching a certain level, reaching a certain like financial threshold or like success or just even life in general where like there's no room left to like learn or grow. Like I just absolutely don't believe in that. You could be the best photographer, you're making millions of dollars, and like you can always learn more and invest more.
Yeah. And I think even just learning in spaces that you already have a good foundation of, you know, we chatted earlier, I bought my first medium format camera this last week, and I shot my first 3 rolls the other day, and it's such a neat thing to, I don't know anything about film. Like I'm really winging it, and I'm thankfully like really good at it so far, kind of out of luck. And it's got the foundation of a thing I know how to do, but it's a skill I've totally got a huge room to learn in.
Yeah.
And there's so many pieces of this business.
But like how cool is that like you've been in photography for what, like 9-10 years?
I started shooting weddings with my dad when I was like 15. So like
Wait,
a
that's so
really
cute.
long time. Yeah.
But like, how cool is it that
I,
you're learning another skill? Like,
yeah, yeah,
and it can be skill, it can be so many different things. Like, I just
yeah.
think that's really cool.
I think it's really riveting that you can kind of lean back into a thing that you're, and it doesn't even have to be business or
Yeah,
photography related. You can always lean back into something that at some point in time fueled you with life and made you excited and made you ambitious, and like dip back into it and be like, what other version of this can excite me again?
right.
Is there anything that you're working on right now?
That I'm
Like
working on.
for an educator, what's your education like? What do you work? Oh, this is a good one. What's your problem? What are you working on?
Realizing that I have a lot of problems. So this
This
year
can be therapy. I'll send you an
yeah,
invoice. It's cool. We can figure it
right.
out.
This year I invested in like a marketing team, which has been like one of the scariest investments I've ever made. And this is a marketing team for the Boudoir Bible, the course, the online
Yeah.
series that I have.
What's that look like when you say a marketing team to somebody that might be like way lower in the beginning parts of this business?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple people on the team, so I hire them. They're not like my team specifically, but they do my ad managements. They help with my funnels. Like there's, I mean, I don't even know how to explain what they do because I'm still learning it. Like I was like, a marketing team, what? Like, am
Were
I
these people
really?
that you found individually, or was this a third party company that says, "Hey, we do this, and we will put together a team of people for you"?
Yeah, so it's a third party where I know like the CEO of it, and she has her own whole team. And then depending on like what your goals are and whatever, she like finds, certain people that she might want to bring onto the team. But she used to be a photographer, which is also like awesome because she knows my niche very well. But I was connected with her through my web designer, so I knew she was amazing. So just that in general, I mean, like the amount of stuff that I've learned in the past like 6 months just from hiring them, like learning, the importance of copywriting and talking to your people and storytelling and things like that. It's been really awesome. Again, crazy investment, but so far it's been great.
Yeah, that's huge. And just more affirmative than the fact that like no matter how successful you are, even if you're making thousands or millions, that there's always stuff to grow upon.
Hmm.
And I'm assuming there's no way that you or your small team would have been able to do what this team is doing and at the capacity they're
Yeah.
doing it. And so now you can really elevate everything to the next step. What's the next like kind of goal in the horizon? Not to give you like where do you see yourself in 5 years, but you're
Yeah.
obviously building and growing the business. Is there something that you're striving for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that was kind of the goal of like hiring out and like getting a marketing team because I felt myself being like, okay, how do I get more people to like know that like I have this course and like how do I get more eyes on this? So I was focusing so much on that and like forgetting to like be my face, which is like the part that I'm the best at, like showing up and like being there for my people. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this so I can like be more forefront and like do the things that I'm really good at. Um so then now like in the long run, like again, I can kind of get back into the things that I love the most and then just continue growing the online platform and reaching more boudoir photographers. And then also eventually, like I have a associate team for my weddings. And I would love, like, so this year was about like 50-50. And then next year I'm hoping it's like 60-40, 30-70. And then I kind of do a lot less in like the next 5 years. So
Do you see? This is something I chatted with Ben Heish once years ago about, and he said that he would love if you could have someone like handles emails, handles editing, handle the business part. He just wants to show up and shoot the day and then walk away. And so the thing that he enjoys most is shooting the wedding itself, and then all
yeah.
the other minutiae is the boring part. Do you foresee yourself a world where your only job as Molly is to like run your team, show up, shoot stuff, walk away, or is there some other lane of it that you'd rather do instead? Or do you just want to sit on a beach as your business runs?
I want to sit on the beach.
I was gonna say you're going to a beach
I'm
next
gonna be
week. I
honest.
feel like it's a
I'm
little
gonna be
biased. Yeah, you
honest.
want to sit on the beach. Yeah.
And it's weird even to hear myself say that because like 8 years ago, like that wasn't the idea. And not, I mean, I still want to like work really hard and do the things and, and shoot clients. Like I'm so passionate about boudoir. I'm so passionate about weddings, and not just like having the team do them and like me not do them, or like, you know, not shoot boudoir ever again. Like I don't want that. But eventually, yeah, like I would love to lean the most into, you know, just like my online platform and having like a kick-ass wedding photography team.
If all of a sudden, you know, let's fast forward 5 years, 2 years, however long it takes, you've got your team kind of doing everything for you, and you're sitting on the bench drinking Mai Tais as the money comes in. Do you see that as, is there something that if all of this was running and it was not automated, but, you know, kind of cruise control, is there something that would open up that you'd want to focus on that you haven't been wanting to, or something you've discovered, or not been wanting to, but haven't had the time to do, some other form of art or work or business or personal or hobby or anything like that, you go, that's the thing I'd fully lean into?
Yeah. I mean, traveling more just in general, but my husband and I have talked about like opening Airbnbs, things like that, like just investments in other places. Again, I'm not like, I can't just sit on a beach and drink Mai Tais.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I have like a hat that I wear all the time. It's by Motel Margarita. It says aspire to retire. Like, yeah, of course. But like, I'm never going to retire. Like, yeah, maybe from photography one day, maybe I stop shooting as many weddings, whatever. But like, I am not, like, my biggest fear is boredom. Like I will never stop moving. Like I am just a busybody. Like I love doing things. I love being productive, and I love working. Like I truly love working. So anyone like hearing this, that's like, oh, Molly just like wants to like make money in her sleep. Like, well, yeah, but I also want to work too. Like I genuinely do. So finding something else that like is fulfilling and rewarding, and being able to do something like with my husband that we like both really love. Like, you know, whether that just means like we're investing in some real estate, and I don't know. I
That's
just get
awesome.
so excited thinking about like what could happen in the future, you know, like even just looking back 5 years ago, it's like, I didn't know I'd be here. Like what could happen in 5 years, you know?
I think photography and the camera in general is such a door opener to so many things. And like,
Yeah.
whether that be trade stuff that I do for personal stuff, like I have a tennis instructor who I traded an hour photo session with, and now I've got that built in, cool, or some other form of things. But this is like, oh, the business is run. You spent, you know, 5, 6, 10 years to build this thing. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Now you're going to become the real estate mogul and Airbnb
Yeah.
host and world traveler, because the camera opened the doorway for that.
And like,
And
that's what's so
it's
cool about it,
amazing.
is like, you don't have to start something to end there. Like, I didn't think I was going to be an educator, you know, like, I just think there's a lot of photographers that start as photographers and then start doing something else, but like take that skill and move with it, you know?
Yeah, it's very transferable, and or just the things you learn from owning this kind of a
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
where it's not like, you know, coming on to narrative on the marketing team, it's been really interesting because they really lean on me to kind of learn about how the industry works. And one of our really early conversations were like, well, what resource do photographers use to educate themselves or learn from? And unlike so many other industries, we don't have a spot. It's a pie chart that's broken up into a bunch of tiny slices.
Mm-hmm.
Where do people network, get resources, learn from, decide to shoot things, post? All of that is spread really thin kind of everywhere. And it's just such an interesting industry in that way that you can kind
Yeah.
of do almost anything with it as a launching point.
Yeah, absolutely. But then Kyle, have you ever thought of like what happens when I'm like 55 and like not cool? Like are
Oh,
people still gonna hire me?
I'm currently dealing with that existential crisis.
Like I
My
just talked
thought,
about that. Like I don't know if I'm gonna
yeah,
be cool. Like right now, I mean, I'm
yeah. Right now, you're
31,
pretty
but
cool.
like
You're pretty cool
yeah,
right now.
but like how long is that gonna last?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
you know, I've said for years that I think there's an expiration date on being a wedding photographer because
yes.
A, it is a ton of work. And I don't think a lot of people
Oh
do
yeah.
the really quick math. They go, how much do I want to make per year? How many weddings do I want to shoot? Divide that. What's the number I need to charge per weddings? Oh, I need to be that good? Fuck. And so I don't think a lot of people do that math. And when you do it and you break it down, unless you're decided to be really, really successful like a Jose Villa, you've got to shoot 20, 30 things a year or run a team, which is more work. And so I think that you do age out of being cool. Like 23
Yeah.
year old rich kids that want to hire somebody in Spain for an elopement maybe don't want to hire me,
Right.
but there's people that there are. I think of people like John Shell, if you're aware of who he is. He's this really amazing, just stunningly beautiful man of a photographer, and he's like 60 and he's
Yeah.
cool. He's shooting Skechers ads. He's still doing it. And I think
Yeah.
you can still be that way. You just have to, like, I'm doing this New York debate where I might move to New York, and I'm having the fear of like, am I going to meet 30 plus year olds who are cool like I want to be cool? And I've got that here in Chicago, and of course I'm going to meet them. Everyone in New York is cool. If you're 35 in
Yeah.
New York, you're cool. But yeah, you might be somewhere in the middle of nowhere and be like, I'm becoming lame. And yeah, it's definitely a fear. I fear that as well.
It's just interesting. I mean, but I'm even like, my wrists hurt after shooting. Like, I've got eye strain on my computer. My hips hurt. I mean, luckily my husband works in like functional and anti-aging medicine, but like, that's about it, guys. Like, I don't know.
You need to do the standing desk. This is you gotta move. You gotta stay. You gotta focus on this. So maybe it's not a fear of becoming too uncool, Molly. Maybe you're just getting old, and it's okay. It's all
whatever.
right.
I just got Botox.
We'd have never known. She's 25 days. Yeah, I fear that, but I think that there's this really great Ira Glass quote that I really love that talks about chasing your taste and the volume of work and just how creatives have to kind of learn how to be good at their jobs. And one of them is how your taste is always evolving. And so for somebody like, just to grab a name out of a hat, like a Rick Rubin, that dude doesn't play any music. He doesn't know anything about like how to actually play or be a musician, but his taste is so good. People seek it out to bring him in a room because they trust him. And I think that's the position I'd like to be. I think pretty highly of my own taste. My friends might call that pretentiousness. And then I Googled pretentiousness and I was like, this just means I have a well thought out opinion and I stick to it. That's fine with me. And so I think that as long as your taste evolves and you're able to keep chasing after it, whether that be with a camera, on a beach, wherever, and having good taste just means being in touch. It means being in touch with what you like and deciding and making new interpretations of it. Because nothing we're doing is original. It's all an interpretation of an interpretation of an interpretation.
1000%. Still like an artist.
And so, exactly. And so it's picking the one and going, okay, I like that, and I like that, and I like that, so I'm going to make something with it. And if you're doing that, I don't think age or just coolness and age don't need to be too conflicting with each other.
Yeah. Well, and like your life just not even career-wise, like just changes. Like, I'm not the same person I was when I first started photography. And like, that's a good thing, like so much more room to like evolve. I mean, that's also like just a random like note of like, that's why I always was like, my business name is going to be my name because I don't know what I'm going to do. Like there was one point I was like, I like got certified to be a yoga instructor. Like, yeah, I got my Lululemon discount. That's pretty much all I got out of it. But like, that was like, oh, well, I could do this and that, and it's like, well, that actually ended up not working because I didn't want it to work. But like, there's just so much room to like do whatever you want.
I actually love that idea of like carrying a name with something. And I've never had a business name that was my actual name because I think my actual name is just like kind of chunky to use as a business name. But I've had this Micro Jupiter like online identity for years. And when I was younger, 20 years ago, that was I was a sponsored semi-pro Halo player. That was my identity for that. It was my very nerdy internet existence. And then it turned into my business and it's become my online identity for that. And then I went to a software development boot camp and I thought I was going to become an engineer for a minute. And I went, okay, I'm still going to do this under Micro Jupiter on my microjupiter.com. I'm still going to that's going to be my identity with this. And so whatever next step I do, Kyle Wilson's fine. That's whatever. But I stick to that Micro Jupiter. If it's photography, if I become a race car driver one day, whatever, it's going to be that all along the way. And so I think it's totally changeable and malleable as you evolve as an artist or a person or age
I think that's cool. Cause I mean, again, like it's not like you had photography tacked on to the end of it either, like you could just do whatever you want. And like, it's obviously a testament that became your, like you know what I mean? Where like,
it's very go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just got married like end of 2022. And it's funny, even today I had someone write me back and they were like, oh, I almost missed your email because like your name came in different. And I troubleshooted it. It's fixed now. I was like, how did that even get sent out? Like, I am not known for my new name. And like, it's on my license. And if you just meet me, I will tell you that's my name. But like on my online space and my business, like I am Molly Grunewald. I'm Molly Grunewald and Company, and that is what I am. And like, and it's been that forever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Like some people, I have a few people that I know in my life that when they meet me in person, like when we hang out, they will micro Jupiter. They talk to me with that, which is kind of dorky, but I'm okay with it sometimes. But like it's, you know, Jupiter's the fifth planet. Number five's been my thing. Like it's really tied in with me. And I just think it's neat that it can kind of go
Yeah.
into whatever that may be. And similarly
Yeah.
with you. And it just doesn't have to, you know, I think like identifying as something is really powerful. And I remember the first workshop I went to was Heck Yeah Photo Camp, hosted by Ben Sasso. And Parker Fitzpatrick, I always mess up his last name. He was there and he mentioned something. He's like, "You're a wedding photographer. Everyone in this room needs to own it. Like, say it. You're not a photographer. You're a wedding photographer." Because it was kind of a connotation when you say, "I'm a wedding photographer." And just recently I changed something in my Instagram bio and I just said I'm a working photographer. And I feel really good about it. I feel like a totally different identity. I go, oh, I'm not pigeonholed to this one thing anymore. I can just take
Yeah.
my camera and go do anything the hell I want to with it and make money or not make money
Yeah.
and feel that ownership of it. And I think identifying, like you've identified as you're not a photographer, you're an entrepreneur, which I feel like
Yeah.
is a more common thing in the last few years. That I've met more, less men in the photo industry. I definitely have met more women that do it, and title themselves to that, which I think is great because you're like, I'm not just this photographer. I'm not going to let you like
Yeah.
lower your expectations. I'm actually a big deal, and that's just one thing I do.
Yeah. Because that's totally something that people do is like be like, oh, well, what do you do for a living? I'm just a photographer. Where did just come from? Like, I don't know. I saw the Instagram post that you said you do all of this stuff and this is what it entails being a photographer. Like, you're not just anything. But
I
yeah,
even sometimes
making that switch.
Yeah, I even sometimes feel, you know, if I'm like dating and I meet someone, they go, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm a wedding photographer." I know that a big version of
Yeah.
weddings jumps in the front of their face, and I have to like hold back and go, "Don't send them your stupid Instagram. You're more valuable than that." But eventually, at some point, it comes up, and they see, and they're like, "Oh, I have a totally different idea of what you do." I'm like, "Yeah," because photographer or just wedding photographer is people just don't always know, but entrepreneur is pretty strong. That's like a really powerful introduction.
You know what's funny is my husband made me do that. Like he would get so I don't know, not mad, but like we would be out, I'd meet new people and he'd hear me like say like I'm just a photographer or even I'm a photographer. And I remember like leaving and being like, I feel like they have no idea. Like they just think I'm your little girlfriend. Like I'm just like your little puppy, like you're in medicine and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well then stop doing that. Like you're being like tied to this title and like, you're actually so much more than that. And like, it's time you start to believe it. And I like took that and ran with it. And I mean, he is like my biggest challenger, but he's always right. He always says like what I need to hear. And that's like one of the like biggest things that like once I started to believe that, I was like, yeah, I
Yeah,
am
I
more
think
than a
it's easy.
photographer.
It's easy to forget what we know and we take for granted. And for instance, the super successful painter friend I mentioned earlier, she's so in the art space, and yet I sent her like 10 wedding photographers kind of in our lane of people. And she goes, "First of all, you ruined my Instagram." She goes, "I didn't know weddings could even look like this." And she goes, "I also checked their prices." And she goes, "You've ruined me for my future wedding. I can't afford these people." And it's just so, I thought, oh, you're an artist. You must know the type of work that
Yeah.
I shoot exists out in the world. It's not just nothing against boring, Plano local weddings. Those are fine too. Everyone needs to pay their rent. But that's what most people assume. And so, yeah, I think we forget that, oh, we say photographer, and actually, like, Molly's an incredible, talented artist. But people go, "Oh, you're just a photographer." But I think entrepreneur is really strong. So I'm glad you do that. I
Thanks.
think it's really good, especially for the type of business, the very complex business that you operate.
Yeah. I had to change my name from Molly Grunewald Photography to Molly Grunewald and Company. I did that beginning of last year.
I think that sounds good too. It sounds kind of like it feels a little like more esteemed.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, company, you take it as you will. It could change. Who knows what that company is, but come to the website, like, you find out.
Yeah. Oh man, that's amazing. Well, thank you. I don't want to take up any more time today. This has been really great. And you have such this incredible business that I feel like we crossed paths somewhere before a narrative and I'd seen your work, but now we actually like get to have a discussion, which was great.
Now we're friends.
Now we're buds. Yeah. We're Midwest. We're dealing with the winter.
Yeah.
If you're in Chicago, let's go get some pizza and be warm.
Yes. Well, first I have to ask
Awesome.
you though, are you like Chicago style or Detroit style pizza?
I am square cut, very specific. Real Chicago style. I like deep dish, it's fine, but I like tavern style. However, man, I fuck with Jets. Jets, because we've got Jets here.
Jets Ranch.
Jets can get it. Oh man, my friend from Detroit, one of my best buds, she's here, and I always have to order like so much Jets Ranch for her when we order pizza. And they send the whole bottle. They do the whole bottle thing. It's crazy. As someone who doesn't like ranch, I'm just like blown away by it. But I'm about that turbo crust life for sure.
Yeah, I'm like an East Coast style pizza actually, but I love me some Jets.
Like
too.
like New Haven or like New York style.
New York style. Like I love a thin crust. Just that kind of girly.
It's the best. It's the best. Oh my god, I love that pizza is our. I'm probably gonna order pizza. You've inspired me. I'm gonna order pizza today. And
wait, and is that actually pizza on your arm?
It actually is. Yeah, it's
I have
dead
pizza
serious.
on. I have pizza on my leg.
Oh, that's amazing. What kind of pizza is on your leg?
It is mountain.
Is it square?
Pizza. It's a mountain with pepperonis on it, so it's called mountain pizza. Yeah.
I initially wanted like a big New York Ninja Turtles greasy slice of pizza on my arm, and then I thought that's not the pizza of my people. Like I grew up, my family is all from here. I grew up eating square cut, and I was like that. But most people think it's like a waffle or a manhole cover, like a bunch of weird stuff. And I'm like,
people literally see mine and they're like, your mountain kind of looks like a pizza. And I'm like, that's because it is. Like, and I'm just like, yes, this is the world's shittiest tattoo on my thigh. Welcome. Like,
that's amazing.
I will never cover it up.
If I'm in Detroit and I need to get a slice of pizza, where do I need to go? Where am I getting to get pizza in Detroit? What's your top one spot?
Oh.
And I'll drop it. I'll even put it in the comments on YouTube. I'll put it in the captions.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, because I'm a thin crust girly, Supino's in Detroit.
Supino's
is really, really good. And you know, we just tried a new like Detroit style pizza, and it's right here in Royal Oak, and I can't even remember what it was, but it was really good. But so we're just gonna have to go with Supino's because I don't know. Supino's, I don't know the other name of it. Yeah.
All right. If I'm in Detroit, next time I'm in Detroit, Supino's is where I gotta go.
Yeah. Call me. I'll meet you there.